Hello and welcome to yet another Ancient Minecrafter video. I'm Graham. Since we were last there, I've had a proper look at my ditch and bank system. If I press X for voxel map now, you can see I've actually got approaching pretty perfectly round, and you can see in the top right or the northeast, I've got the big entrance that was always there, and there's a smaller entrance in the south. So that's good. I've done a tiny bit more coding, just really to tidy up these chalk blocks. Not anything that you would notice. As always, circles in Minecraft are a nightmare, and as you can see here from the northeast entrance, the problem is not so much doing the circles, but the fact that they are so thick. Like this bank is 6 blocks wide, so I had to do a kind of inner circle and an outer circle, and then approximate between them. But what I'm going to do this video is talk about, well, everything about Stonehenge is more or less a mystery anyway. I'm going to go down to lapis lazuli for various reasons, mainly because it's pretty. What I'm going to talk about is something called the Aubrey holes. They were named after an archaeologist called Aubrey, and they are a set of 56 holes around the inside of Stonehenge. And nobody knows why. They were built, this is phase 1 of Stonehenge, the very first thing that was built, and the holes were dug around then. They might have had wooden posts in them, they might not. There's no evidence of like bits of wood or impressions. They might have had stones in them, though that's less likely. They might have been used for doing calculations. If you know what you're doing, there were 56 holes, and the moon takes about 28 days to go around the Earth. So from one full moon to the next is 27 and a bit days. So you could have like a marker stone or a post, and you could move it 2 holes every day, and then it would go right round the circle in one full moon. Also, there's a weird cycle of the moon that goes every 18.61 years, and if you did clever stuff and moved something around, I think 3 holes, it would go around 2 circles in 18 years or something. So there are ways in which you could use them to calculate, but we have no idea if that's what they did. Anyway, these holes were 5 meters inside the bank, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I did a circle. I went onto the internet and I found a circle calculator. And I wrote down, again, there is going to be some pausing and restarting. I wrote down the list of numbers, which just goes 6, 4, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2. So starting from here, this central bit will be 12, so I'll do 6 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got this from a tutorial on YouTube as well. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then looking down at my paper, we go 3. And I'm just using these so they show up nicely actually. 3. Because what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go around and knock gaps in it. 2. And then that'll leave me with markers of where the holes used to be. 2, 1, 2. And then if I do this all the way around, I should be left where I can just do a series of 3 or 4 ones going diagonally like this. And they should meet up. If I just fly a minute, we can see that's the beginning of a circle and we're actually round to the northeast. So I'm just going to fly down here. I think I'm going to just pause it for a minute and do lots of these, and I'll come back and we'll see how they all line up. So once again, I'm going to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meters in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm going to press pause here. 1, 2, 3 when I've done this block. 1, 2, 3. We'll just see how it lines up. 2, 1, 1, 2, and we can already see them coming into view. And we go diagonally here, and it might be one block out. It's not 100%, shall we say. Oh, actually, and I'll just hit the mouse. Right, now if we come round to the inside. Oh, that's pretty close. Which way? Let's go that way for the minute. Fly! And then we can see I can tidy it up a bit, but when I start knocking holes in it to leave like a row of, well, it'll start off being lapis lazuli, or yeah, I need to move that double block a bit to the left. Right, I'm going to pause it there and I'll be back in a minute when I've gone around the whole circle. Right, welcome back. I have just, and it only took a couple of minutes. If we now look at the voxel map, for example, sometimes it doesn't update. Nope, it's slightly wobbly. in that top left corner, but I don't really care about that. We now have a perfect ring of bluestone all the way around, and again, I've looked at tutorials and videos on Facebook, on YouTube, and seen how to do this. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to go around and count these afterwards and see how many we've got. So I'm just going to go and bash out every other one for the minute, and that'll leave us with what will look like. I mean, I chose the lapis ore because I wanted it to look a bit like the famous bluestones, and there is a not very credible theory, I have to say, but there is a bit of a theory that the bluestones might have started off being in these 56 holes. I don't think anybody really believes that now, but it's something I read. And actually looking up these, oh no, that's wrong, looking up these Aubrey holes on the internet, I pretty soon found out that, like everything else about Stonehenge, there's a lot of theory and there's a lot of people who really aren't terribly sure. Now that's nice and pleasing, isn't it? Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, we've got way more than 14, because obviously if there's 56, there should be 14 in each quadrant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, about 23 or 24. So we can start to space them out a bit. So let's put them out with like 2 squares in between. And luckily the grass hasn't grown, so we can kind of have a rough idea. So, you know, at least they appear to be in a bit of a circle. I'm kind of making this up as I go along to some extent, but I think it's... Yeah, they're looking quite nicely spaced out now, aren't they? Right, so now... Oh no, that's not good. Well, that's better. That's much better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I just need to space them out a little bit more. I'll press pause. I'll try and get 14 and then I'll go around the whole... I'll work out a pattern and I'll go around the whole circle and then we can wander around and we can see what it would look like with blue stones. And then we'll play around with wooden posts and probably totem poles as well. So I'll be back in a minute. Right, I was messing around with this and I realised I was losing my circle, as it were. So what I've done is I've done a double height block, and this is a quarter of it, as you can see, and I'm just flying and having a look. And that looks alright to me. What I'm going to do now is copy that another 3 times around the circle, work out the pattern, and then delete the bits in the middle, and that will look like bluestones, which I say wasn't particularly likely, but after that we can go around and play. Obviously, I'm in Minecraft. All I can do is move things 1 meter left or right, so it's not, as they say, the perfect solution. And obviously, Minecraft and circles and trying to get things evenly spaced is never going to be an ideal solution. But I'll work out a pattern and I'll go around and do it all the way around, and I'll be back. There's a lot of pausing and everything in here, but you don't really want to see all the workings. And then we can have a walk around and we can see pretty much what early man would have seen in Phase I of Stonehenge, which was around 3000 BC or 5000 years ago. Hello and welcome back. I have wandered around. As you can see, we're now at sunset. I'm just heading for the centre. As you can see, it's not... I was going to say it's not 100% evenly spaced, but there's a couple that are a bit closer together. But I think within the limits of a 1 metre block and what we can do, that's pretty good. And that gives you a kind of... Ignore the signpost with the measures on. That gives you an impression of what they were aiming for. And of course, I haven't actually counted out that there were 56. Have a quick look on Voxel map. Yeah, that. If you ever look up pictures, oh, that one in the top right looks a bit in. If you ever look at pictures of Phase I of Stonehenge on the internet, you see this ring, ditch, and bank with the Aubrey holes all marked out in a ring like that just inside. So that does look very accurate. The only thing is that I've done a lot of reading around this, obviously, as I was preparing this series and everything. And the honest truth is, nobody knows. I mean, a lot of things like these ditches and banks here, they all look very pretty, but nobody actually knows how high they were or how wide they were. They know roughly because of what's left, but what's left has been ploughed over, it's been erased. It's it's basically a best guess by lots of archaeologists, and there's a chance somebody could come across this like 5 or 10 years hence and say, "Oh, we've invented this wonderful new technology, and actually we've searched, ground penetrating radar or something, and I can't type. It turns out that this is all just a load of nonsense and nothing like that really happened." So that's something you always have to bear in mind. Let's choose a nice scary one, shall we? I'm going with two different totem poles here, simply because of this idea. Like I say, we had 56 holes. So if they alternated between the 56 holes, move dirt down to there for a minute. We don't need signs for the minute. If they alternated between their 56 holes like every other day, then they would have got round to 28, which is a very lunar number. It's the number of days in a cycle. So I will now start taking these out and replacing them with totem poles. And like I say, I'll do them alternately in case they did, like for example, they might have done, I know it's a Minecraft creeper, but it's to give you a kind of black and white impression. Because they might have done, one for sunset and one for sunrise and then got round to a whole moon. So, and you can see here from the patches on the ground, you can see where I have taken out the circle so that I could mark it out. In actual prehistoric times, this would have been far easier because they just would have got a long piece of rope and put a wooden stake in right in the middle, tied the rope round it and just run around making marks on the ground. It would have been far, far easier than all this squares and messing around and counting. But again, I feel a pause coming on. I think I'm just going to pause it for a minute and go around and then we can walk around. This is actually starting to look quite cool, I think. Really makes it quite atmospheric. Oh, that's bad. Let's do that. Right, another pause is coming up because as you can see, I haven't got... Oh man, that is... Yeah, that's really quite nice. Okay then, back in a minute. Right, I think that should be the last of the big pauses that I need to do. As I talk, I'm going to run... Man, that really is quite bizarre. I'm just going to kind of run around the inside circle here for a bit. I mean, I know I've gone for quite scary faces, and to be honest, we have no idea even if they would have used totem poles or not. Here we are at the south entrance. There was an entrance at the south, and it was a lot narrower than the one at the north. Also, you can see here I've had to kind of jiggle around as the land rose ever so slightly. I chose not to flatten it completely. But there's no reason at the very least. The reason I've done them alternating is that every sunrise, and every sunset, they could have had like a small statue or even a medallion or a ceremonial hat or something. And if they've moved it round one totem pole every sunrise and every sunset, then it would always go on the same totem pole every full moon, which would be really quite astounding. Like I say, so much of this is conjecture, and I probably, before I move on to phase 2, although I'm loving that, I'm just going to fly for a minute just so that we can get a full kind of... It's like a whole kind of circle of people looking at you. That's really quite weird, and I can see from flying it's not 100% even. But probably when I come back for phase 2, I will probably have dug all these up and just leave a circle of pits, because by phase 2 they were just holes, and they were being used for burials actually. They were doing cremations and burying ashes in them. Now I've come here, this is what's called the northeast entrance. This is the main entrance. I'm looking at doing quite an extensive change to my mod. I'll just get rid of these tall trees, because there is a really fascinating theory. Now here is where the avenue comes in. So the avenue kind of comes about 500 meters up here. I know it's going to be another big job. And then it comes in here, and it doesn't actually line up perfectly straight with the circle at first. Then later on they redug it and moved it. So I'm just looking down at my bar here. I'm going to go to my lovely chalk grass that I fixed. Again, this is all to do with digging and with lumps and bumps in the ground, so no dates are accurate, but there must have been some element of the avenue here. Otherwise they wouldn't have made the big entrance here. And I'm just going to start a fairly minor bank and ditch system along here. And again, we're on the diagonal, so it's not going to be particularly easy or neat, but as I fill it in, because there was a really lovely theory as to why Stonehenge was built. And as with all of this stuff, until we invent a time machine and go and get a caveman and ask him, somebody from the Stone Age, and ask him, what were you thinking? It will have to be a theory. But, and I haven't replicated this in world painting yet, all round this area of Stonehenge, of the Wiltshire Plain, that's looking quite nice and even, isn't it? There are a series of ridges across the landscape, and they think they were caused by the last ice age, 10,000, 12,000 years ago, something like that. And they think what happened is the glaciers just carved ridges across as they retreated. And very early man, the theory goes, would have noticed one of these ridges. And if he looked down it on the winter solstice, which if you're living in the same place and looking at the land around you would be really easy to notice, he noticed that, the reason I'm pausing a minute here is that in real life this one originally didn't quite match up. It was actually a couple of meters over here. But just for the sake of simplicity, I'll just quickly pop one in here. Trying to do diagonals on the fly. That's why I keep jumping and looking down on them. Yeah, they noticed that one of these ridges lined up perfectly with either the midsummer sunrise, so you'd be at the far end of it and you'd look and you'd see the sunrise, or at the other end of the year, if you stood at the other end of it and looked and watched the midwinter sunset on December the 21st, you would see it line up perfectly. And they obviously thought this meant something. And that ridge is, again, it's only a theory, but that ridge then went on to become diagonals, 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 the beginnings of the avenue. And then obviously they extended it, and the actual avenue, like I say, I've got about 500 meters that way, 600 meters that way, and then it bends round to the right and it ends up dropping down to the River Avon, which is actually on my map. We haven't been over there yet. And then the theory is that they would have then got off the River Avon at a place about 1.5 miles up the road called Durrington Walls. I've got a waypoint for it, but I haven't started building it yet. It was a Neolithic village. Well, maybe a small town actually. It was quite insanely big. I mean, if I just stop doing diagonals for a moment. Yep, if we go in here, so now we've got much more of a sense of, I think the grass, it kind of ruins the effect, but we've got a kind of avenue coming up here. Eventually there will be, as well as with everything in Stone Age life, there'll be, oh that's loud, there'll be a ditch on the other side of the bank, presumably where they dug all the material out to make the bank. So you come up here, and as I was saying, I need to do a fairly heavy duty mod because at the winter solstice, you come up here and what you see is the sun setting slap bang in front of you, right in the middle of the circle. And likewise, if you're in the middle of the circle, run over to this big post in the middle. I think I might have to leave that post there because it's so handy. If you're in the middle of the circle, you turn round and where that big, let's just switch off waypoints a minute. Let's just hide them. Cursors. We'll just hide them all. So we can actually see. So yeah, then you'd be looking out here. Here's your post. And at midwinter sunrise, you'd stand here. No. Slowly. At midsummer sunrise, June the 21st roughly, you'd see the sunrise directly down that avenue. And because they're solstices, you would get 5 days where that would happen. And obviously the fact that it was, you know, for 10, 12,000 years ago, a natural phenomenon. There was a natural, not a huge ditch and bank, but a kind of slight rise in the ground that gave these lines that would show up at sunrise and sunset. That obviously is what, in their minds, gave it the power, as it were. And that's probably, well, it's a theory, and it's a theory that I like. That's probably what led to them. Oh yeah, you can see where I made a horrible mistake with the circle here, because I'm starting to dig a ditch. And like I say, when we come back to the next video, I'll just jump. I will do a nice ditch along here. I'll have a quick look on the internet and get some approximate measurements for a ditch and bank. And I might even do some clever stuff with world edit and at least mark out where the ditch and bank of the avenue. It's going to be another job like doing the cursors. The avenue is going to go 500 or 600 meters that away. And then it's going to curve around. If I fly and run, so it's going to go 500 or 600 meters this way. This is where you start to see why I'm saving up for a new graphics card. Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare job really, 'cause it's going to be up and down and over hills. If we put the Stonehenge waypoint back on, I know it's not in the middle of Stonehenge, but it'll give me a rough idea of how far I've gone. Yeah, see, I'm only 170 metres away from it now. So yeah, we've got a fair old distance to go. So ever so roughly, the very first part of the avenue is going to go this far. So as you can imagine, on a high day like, say, winter solstice, everybody would have assembled at least right at the end of this avenue, probably at like 3 in the afternoon, waiting for the sunset, and then they would have all marched down there and stopped and just seen the sunset right down in the middle of the circle. Yeah, my render distance is really not coping. If we just wait here a minute, will it come down to ground level? And then it kind of goes off right. Yeah, even with the biggest zoom level we can't see. Like I said, I've done so much of Wiltshire, and then somewhere around here is a river, but that's for another day. I will just completely cheat and go back to Stonehenge. And as always, oh, now look at that. I know I've got some fence posts and stuff, but I mean, you have no doubt now that there is something special going on. So while I'm walking back up here and coming up to it and going, what is this big white thing on the horizon? All that remains for me to say is the usual. I am looking for a way into my stone circle. Here it is, here's the avenue. As always, please leave me comments, tell me what you think. Like my channel, subscribe to my channel. I'm getting much more organised about putting these videos up, and I'm getting much more excited now because, you know, I'm not building a cursus or building a barrow or messing around. This is Stonehenge. And if you go to Stonehenge, well worth a visit, you will see not as big and spectacular as this, but you'll see these little lumps and bumps, and the actual footpath they take you around actually cuts over it, so you can actually get a really good look. Also, somewhere around here, I think I need to put in the heel stone, but again, nobody quite sure when it was in, but I think there should be at least a pair of stones in here, so next time we come back, I'll do phase 2. I'll probably take out all these lovely totem poles, and I will put in holes and stones, and we'll have a bit of fun. So, yes, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please like, please leave me comments, share, tell your friends if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, goodbye.